Can you track the escape pods?
Hello there, I'm Big Alias, and I love this series. I've really enjoyed talking about these Halo games to you from, God, what was it, Reach to now 4? And clearly other people are too. I'm getting a fairly good response on this. People are enjoying these, and they're liking what I'm making. Until now. Yeah, this is going to be the point where I piss people off, I annoy people a lot, and people are not happy with what I've done here. So we've done the giant climb. We've climbed to the peak of the mountain, right to the top, and experienced what was my favorite game with Halo 3. We even had that little exploration into ODST, and now begins the giant leap off of the cliff into Halo 4. Halo 4. Okay, to me, personally speaking, this was quite possibly the most disappointing game I've ever played. And now you have to bear in mind, I'm not saying worse. There are good qualities to this game. There are things that I do like, and I think I like more than I did when it came out. There are things that I like, but in terms, you have to consider what it means to be disappointing. This game was huge, particularly for me, for a Halo fan. You have to bear in mind, like, Halo 3 was the biggest game on the planet. Halo as a franchise was one of the biggest gaming franchises of all time. Remember the experience of Halo 3, exactly what I talked about during my Halo 3 review. The queues outside the store, the excitement, the grandiose campaign, the tear shed, dude. You know, the game nights, all of that. And even with Reach, there was a beauty to it. It was such a beautiful close and send-off. And for it to be resurrected and brought back from the dead, it would have to be huge. It would have to meet the expectations, the giant swelling well, the tidal wave of expectations that it had going into it, that the fans had going into it, the excitement that we had. It would have to match up to that. And it didn't even come close. It wasn't even close to matching up. Like I said, not everything was bad. There was good to this game. But the way that it just missed the expectation, just shoop, straight past it and off of that edge, just nowhere close to what we expected from this franchise and what we wanted from this franchise. And you have to remember that, going into it, we had a lot of reinforcement, a lot of positive reinforcement. A lot of these guys, they're the guys that made the original trilogy. They have their heads on straight. These are all veteran game developers. This is not a new crew. These are all people who have made excellent games. But it just didn't work. They just didn't gel the way that I guess I wanted them to. And so ultimately this really fell by the wayside. So the issues themselves, right? I can't just keep talking about what the disappointment of the game. But, just bear in mind that it was a huge expectation that just wasn't met for me. So why was it disappointing?
I mean, you just thought the Covenant would go, wait a minute. When we build our new ship, should we not have a giant shield generator that blows the entire ship up when we do? Hardly hell, neighborino.
During my Halo 3, and I think a little bit during my Halo 2 analysis, I talked about the art style and how important the art style was to the game and how it made the game timeless. And the reason it made the game timeless was because it was detailed enough to look good, but not so busy that in the future, all of those muddy textures would just come across as ugly. This is not the case with 4. And it was one of those games where you could instantly tell immediately from the get-go that it was going to look very bad very soon. Now, admittedly, technically, quote-unquote, technically, it did look good. Like, it had a lot of detail to it. The graphics were very involved. But I think they may have been too involved. It made it verbose, a little bit too obsessed with itself. It's hard to explain. It's like a giant golden building. On the surface, yeah, okay, wow, that's impressive. But when you have to sit in a giant golden building all day, every day, it's going to get smudges on it, and it's going to be too reflective, and it's just going to look ugly. It just looks ugly, despite the fact that objectively it's impressive. And that's exactly how I feel about Halo 4's graphics. They're like a big gold statue where, yeah, on the surface you go, wow, that's an impressive skybox. The scenery there is very impressive. But I don't want to look at it. I don't want to look at this. And this is not just to mention the enemies. And the enemies, they look terrible here. They're too detailed. They went too far. They maxed it out too much. We went from like these slick, sleek elites that were threatening, but they also had like a sense of like grandiose to them, and they were very obsessed with things and culture and religion and what have you. And you never get that sense with the Halo 4 ones. It's just like they look a bit too messy and brutish. Not, pardon the pun.
Guys, what's up? You having as much fun as I am on this mission?
The story, that's where a lot of people say this game really makes up, and it's excellent. It's a good story, and again, I completely disagree. I've said this in the past. If it's all good and well creating a story that, like Halo 4's, where it's very grounded, and it's about like who is the machine and deterioration, mental deterioration and what have you. It's all good and well making that story, that again, objectively, the story's okay. But when you're making a story that is so character driven and so based off of the experiences that you've had with that character, but those experiences don't match up with the foundation of the new story, then it just doesn't work. This is not. Why do I care about whether the Master Chief is a machine or a human when I have been playing with him as a machine, purely a machine, during every other game? I never asked this question before, so why am I asking it now? It was never a question to begin with, and then suddenly it becomes a question, and therefore it should be important. There's no reason for it to be important. If it was the first game in the series asking this, sure, because you're introducing this new character and telling me why I should care. When it's the fourth entry with this character and you're saying you should care about this character's backstory despite the fact that you never did before, that just doesn't match up. It doesn't work. And that is in the back of my mind throughout this entire story, so it kind of dampens everything else that happens. Not that it matters, because I don't really like the story either. I think it's trying too hard to make you shed a tear to be deep. A good story with deep storytelling should feel natural. It should feel as though it's naturally telling a deep story. You could say this about Halo 2. I mean, yeah, okay, a lot of it is like, wow, they're bringing in all of this huge stuff, the religion, what have you, but they make it feel natural. They make it feel as though, yes, this is actually part of the journey, and they're not just trying to make me sad. This is what I love about the Coen brothers and the way that they direct films, is that, yeah, there's a lot of depth there, but it's done in a way that just feels real and natural, and as though these characters would exist if the Coen brothers were not pointing a camera in their face, or whoever the cinematographer is not pointing a camera in their face. These characters would still just be existing, and you don't get that sense with 343 storytelling, and it's really at its worst here. Not to mention the insane level of exhibitionism, the constant feeding you the story and telling you, oh, this is what's happening, and then this is what's happening, and the horrific monologue, which was well voiced, but the writing itself, just explaining everything that you need to know, is all just dumped on you. This huge lore dump by the librarian's wife, I can't remember her name, and it's all just dumped on you, and it's also just terrible. It's like, oh yeah, and it turns out that this was always going to happen, and we needed to get you here, so everything that you've been through, it was always just destined to happen. You had no agency in this whatsoever. And I can dislike a story, but a story that tries to invalidate a previous story is just unforgivable, especially when that story means so much to so many people. So I'm not happy about that either. The gameplay, I don't like the level design here. I think that they got the sort of range of combat completely wrong here. You either feel too far away from your enemies or too close to your enemies. There's not enough ammo. And the weapons, okay, they feel pretty good. I think this might be the best version of the Covenant Carbine. I think that's pretty great. But a lot of the time the vehicular combat just feels as though it's in far too tighter level design, and that doesn't work for me either.
Who can breathe the longest? Ready?
This is like playing Halo with two 8-year-olds.
Guys, you want to hear my car impression?
And finally, in terms of things that I despise, the multiplayer as a whole. I just didn't like the multiplayer at all. It had suffered with the same issue in terms of level design as the campaign, where you either felt too far away or too close from your enemy. I thought the leveling itself, there wasn't enough, but I'm okay with a number for a rank. But stuff like loadouts, what was it? They had kill streaks and perks. It was just stupid. It was really annoying. You could really tell that they were trying to play catch up with the other developers, and I think we could all see through that. And even people who defend this game now, even they'll admit that the multiplayer was absolutely arse in this game. But what was good? I think the soundtrack was very good. I didn't like it particularly in a Halo context because I didn't think it really matched the theming of the games. But objectively, it was an excellent soundtrack. Like I said, graphically, on a technical level, yes, the graphics are good. I do think I didn't like the story, but that's compared to all of the other Halo stories. Compared to other stories, I guess they do a lot. And there's a lot of meat on the bone here in terms of the story too. There is a lot to like grab onto, and it doesn't like overlap itself or anything like that. It does maintain a narrative that you can follow, so that's pretty cool. Some of the locations I also think were absolutely excellent in this game, and there is fun to be had, but when it comes to replaying any of these games, Halo 4 is always at the bottom of my list. And this video, honestly, if I wasn't trying to keep these to minimal length, could go on and on and on and on about my issues. I think they really dropped the ball with this one, and it took a lot to recover, but I think, not meeting the expectations of the series is one thing, but this was hugely disappointing. So let's take a look at the score. So yeah, it's not an awful score. You may have thought, based off the fact that I spent the whole video slating this game, that I would give it a terrible score, but again, it's not awful. It just didn't meet expectations and was tremendously disappointing. I'll see you all later.
The PlayStation's only $149, and you can also get leading titles.